It's Tuesday, October 6th. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. A flash flood warning is in effect for low-lying and flood-prone areas of St. Mary, Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon and Manchester. The Meteorological Service is also continuing flash flood watch for low-lying and flood-prone areas of Westmoreland, Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, St. Anne and St. Elizabeth. This as sections of the island continue to be impacted by rains. Warnings are in effect until 5 p.m. The National Works Agency, NWA, says it's working to restore access to some St. Thomas communities by Tuesday. Several roadways in the parish have become impassable as a result of heavy rains affecting the island since weekend. They include the Morant Bay to Port Morant, Pleasant Hill to the Hectors River, and Bath to Hordley roads. News came to PBCJ that a section of the Surge Island to Trinityville Main Road in St. Thomas is impassable as heavy rainfall has washed out a detour road in the vicinity of a bridge which is under construction. Some residents fear the situation may take a turn for the worse if the rains continue.
The last time there was rain, this area led to flooding as well. So all of this area, it flooded out all of this area. And the water is quite swift at the moment, but not a problem right now. But if the rainfall continues again, then it's going to be an issue.
The island continues to experience a rash of COVID-19 cases. We get an updated look at our current status in this next report.
3 more deaths resulting from the pandemic were recorded over the past 24 hours. The COVID-19 death toll now stands at 123. The island also recorded 97 new COVID-19 cases over the same period, bringing the overall tally to 7,109. According to the Health and Wellness Ministry, 39 recoveries were also recorded, bringing the number of recovered cases to 2,674. The number of active cases now stand at 4,216. At this time, there are 39 moderately ill and 12 critically ill patients. 140 persons are currently hospitalized. 5 persons are quarantined in a government facility. In the meantime, there are 22,385 persons quarantined at home. Currently, there are 484 imported cases and 409 cases of local transmission, while 826 are contacts of confirmed cases. 236 are associated with the St. Catherine Workplace Cluster, and 5,154 cases are under investigation. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
The World Health Organization, WHO, is warning of a difficult period ahead with epidemiological data indicating that 1 in 10 people worldwide may have been infected by the new coronavirus, more than 20 times the number of confirmed cases. On the flip side, more than 100 countries have signed on to the COVAX facility, organized to develop and equally distribute a vaccine against the virus. Head of Emergencies at the World Health Organization, Dr. Michael Ryan, says the figures vary from urban to rural areas.
Southeast Asia continues to see a surge in cases, with Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean regions showing an increase in cases and deaths. The situation in Africa and the Western Pacific is currently rather more positive. Our current best estimates tell us that about 10% of the global population may have been infected by this virus. This varies depending on country, it varies from urban to rural, it varies between different groups. But what it does mean is that the vast majority of the world remains at risk.
The estimate, which would amount to more than 760 million people based on a current world population of about 7.6 billion, far outstrips the number of confirmed cases as tallied by both the WHO and Johns Hopkins University, now more than 35 million worldwide. Dr. Ryan says the pandemic continues to evolve, but tools exist to suppress transmission and save lives.
And they are at our disposal. The future depends on the choices we collectively make about how we use those tools, develop, scale up, and distribute others.
Meanwhile, WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus says the WHO continues to support over 100 countries and territories in their response to the virus.
We have sourced, validated, purchased, and delivered masks, gloves, respirators, gowns, goggles, swabs, tests, reagents, thermometers, oxygen concentrators, ventilators, and more to 177 countries and territories around the world. And more than 12,000 patients have now been enrolled in the WHO Solidarity Therapeutics trial in nearly 500 hospitals in 29 countries.
He provided an update on the COVAX facility, a pillar of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator.
As soon as the data were published showing dexamethasone was effective in treating patients with severe and critical disease, we secured critical supplies for up to 4.5 million patients to ensure patients in lower income countries don't miss out on this life-saving medicine. COVAX is supporting the development of 9 vaccines, with more in the pipeline.
Mr. Ghebreyesus says 168 countries are covered by the COVAX facility, which represents more than 2/3 of the world's population.
And we are still in discussion with another 25 countries. All of this has only been possible because of the power of partnership. WHO doesn't have the mandate or the capacity to do everything. But we do have the unique mandate and capacity to coordinate the global response.
The WHO executives were speaking at the organization's executive board's special session on COVID-19. You should know Jamaica is part of the COVAX facility. President of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, JHTA, Clifton Reeder, says the tourism sector's widespread implementation of health and safety protocols has been serving as a shining example for the rest of the country. He says the training departments in the hotels will work with the Ministry of Health to have virtual workshops organized with the assistance of churches and schools and share the protocols and strategies that are serving Jamaica well in the tourist industry. Mr. Reeder, in the meantime, says that while COVID-19 recovery planning focuses now on logistics and sanitization, safe distancing and mask wearing, the country also needs to look ahead to what life will be like going forward. He was speaking last Friday at the Moon Palace Jamaica Grand in Ocho Rios. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has lauded the island's teachers as they navigate an unusually challenging new school term. The school term resumed on Monday, but physical reopening plans were shelved owing to an ongoing island-wide surge in COVID-19 cases. Mr. Holness used the occasion of his World Teachers' Day message on Monday to extol the educators.
The past months have tested our traditional educational modalities as the COVID-19 pandemic has required our teachers to adapt and innovate in providing instruction. Teachers in Jamaica and the Caribbean have been caring and creative in reaching out to our most vulnerable children, delivering schoolwork and even meals to them, sometimes in remote communities. They have quickly adapted to the situation, and where there have been resource gaps, our teachers have even improvised, using their own resources. Our teachers have embraced the shift to remote and online teaching and learning methods. Many have improved their digital capacity. This new norm requires that we are all actively engaged in rapidly learning new ways to survive these challenging times.
He also cited the recent release of CXC results as evidence to the commitment of our teachers.
Despite the disruption to the education system by the pandemic, the recent sitting of the examinations administered by the Caribbean Examinations Council is but one example of the dedication of our teachers. The government of Jamaica is committed to supporting our teachers in the best way we can as a mark of recognition of the important role you play in society. We are committed to providing you with the necessary technological tools that are needed to execute your duties. We recognize that for you to succeed, all students must also have access, and we have embarked on an ambitious plan to provide broadband internet access to all our students.
World Teachers' Day has been globally observed on October 5 since 1994. The Houses of Parliament will resume their regular operations on Tuesday, October 6, 2020. The move follows a deep cleaning exercise undertaken by Parliament after a member of staff tested positive for the coronavirus disease 2019. The Parliament wishes to assure the public that it is adhering to procedures issued by the Ministry of Health and Wellness under such circumstances. Members of Parliament have been meeting at the Jamaica Conference Centre since sessions reopened after the September general election. The Jamaica Stock Exchange Combined Index advanced on Monday. To get the details on this and other market news, we join Gabriel Thompson for the Business Report.
In Monday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 3,274 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 80 stocks, of which 33 advanced, 29 declined and 18 traded firm. The Junior Market Index declined by 42 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, Burrito Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services, Cargo Handlers Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Blue Par Group Limited. Trans Jamaican Highway Limited was the volume leader with 9.3 million units, followed by Tropical Battery Company Limited with 4.4 million units and QWI Investments Limited with 1.2 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Monday, October 5, ended trading at $143.73. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $109.21. The pound sterling traded for $188.80, and the euro ended trading at $168.95. Oil prices gained on Tuesday amid supply disruptions in Norway, a new hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, and U.S. President Donald Trump's return to the White House after being treated for COVID-19 in hospital. Brent crude futures gained 38 cents to $41.67 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 34 cents to $39.56 a barrel. And that's it for the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In regional news, we begin with Trinidad and Tobago. The government in that country will spend $50 million in the next fiscal year for the acquisition of computers for needy students. The announcement came from Finance Minister Colm Imbert during the delivery of the 2020-2021 budget. More in this report from Crystal Wilson.
We have provided the sum of $50 million in this year's budgetary allocation for the acquisition of computers for needy students.
No student will be left behind. The words of Finance Minister Colm Imbert on Monday as he assured government is taking seriously the interests of this country's children and their education. Minister Imbert announced that government will invest $50 million for computers which will be supplied to needy children across Trinidad and Tobago. With school closed since March 2020, government has noted a large number of the student population remains without devices to aid in accessing online learning platforms.
At the virtual opening of our schools in September 2020, however, we recognize that thousands of children did not have easy access to computers or the internet to be able to take advantage of the new system of virtual teaching. The acquisition and distribution of these computers will be a joint effort between the Ministries of Education to identify the students, the Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation to make sure we get value for money and proper specifications of equipment, and the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services to ensure that those who really need these computers get them.
The student population as well as members of the public will also benefit from broadband availability, as government has also promised free public Wi-Fi.
The Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation has been charged with the responsibility of directing the necessary changes to accomplish this objective, and in particular has been mandated to ensure that high-speed broadband internet access, accompanied by the requisite ICT infrastructure, is made available for all citizens.
And the nation's teachers will not be left out, as government will continue to invest in them, many of whom are already enrolled in the ICT Teacher Professional Development Program. Minister Imbert said this will lead to a more efficient and effective use of modern technology. Crystal Wilson, TTT News.
Parents have been identified as a main source of illegal drugs and alcohol for primary school children. More from Barbados today.
This was one of the findings of the National Primary School Survey 2020 conducted by the National Council of Substance Abuse, entitled Drug Use and Related Issues Among the Primary School, which was released yesterday. Research assistant at the NCSA and survey coordinator Laura Foster revealed that drug use at the primary school level remained minimal and was primarily experimental. She said the results of the survey, which was the third of its kind, following similar surveys in 2006 and 2009, showed prevalence rates had generally decreased since 2009.
What we found was that friends and family were generally the most common sources for all of the substances. In terms of tobacco and Fanta, it was friends. For alcohol, energy drinks, and marijuana, it was the family. In terms of inhalants, you can see that it was the home, very closely followed by the family. Now, in our full report, you will see that we actually broke the family category down into parents, siblings, and other relatives. And when we did this, what we found was that parents were actually the most common family source for drugs such as marijuana, alcohol, energy drinks, and inhalants, while other relatives were the main source in terms of the family for tobacco, cigarettes, and Fanta. In terms of locations of use across the board, we found that it was the home for all substances. That was the top location. And this stands to reason, given the fact that one, the family was one of the most common sources for drugs, and also the young age of our participants, as they are quite likely spending much of their out-of-time school at home or in its close environs.
Among some of the NCSA's recommendations was for drug prevention education to be increased for primary school students of all ages.
At this stage, drug use at the primary school level remains minimal, and it is primarily experimental. Prevalence rates have generally decreased since 2009. However, efforts should be made to increase drug prevention education for primary school students. And we want to see energy drinks, Fanta, lean, vaping, and social determinants of drug use incorporated into our prevention efforts at this level. We also want consideration to be given to a coordinated and structured approach to drug prevention education, which involves the NCSA, teachers, parents, and other stakeholders. And we want this approach to be buttressed with initiatives which target the parents and the wider community. And lastly, we want to see children's access to drugs further restricted.
Minister of Home Affairs Wilfred Abrams described the findings as alarming, but lauded the NCSA for its work. However, he said all stakeholders must do their part to prevent the early onset of drug use among the nation's children.
We need to stop underestimating our children. They are way more intelligent than we give them credit for. With intelligence and development comes curiosity. It is not something we should attempt to stymie in children. We should not attempt to stop them from being curious. We should not attempt to stop them from asking questions. We should not attempt to stop them from investigating ourselves. Rather, we must recognize their early development now and speak to them in a language that they can understand, so that they know when choices are presented to them what is right and what is wrong, so that they have the confidence and the strength to say no when no is the only appropriate answer. Therefore, for us to concentrate on primary school children and the findings, I don't want to go too much into the findings, I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but the findings, quite frankly, are alarming. And the findings suggest and support that this study was absolutely necessary, and it was absolutely necessary at this point in time. In fact, to be honest, I think we would have suffered if we had left this study any later.
In St. Lucia, the opposition took to the streets to protest the government's handling of the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Bill. Civil society organizations, including the Bar Association, had requested more time to scrutinize what critics say is a deeply flawed bill. But the Prime Minister, citing a limited time frame with the end of the state of emergency, roundly rejected the requests.
Thousands of placard-bearing St. Lucians, most of whom clad in red, took to the streets on Sunday to protest against what the opposition has described as the UWP government's divisive style of leadership. The St. Lucia Labour Party's march commenced at the Sabine VG and culminated with a rally on the Castries Market steps, where platform speakers voiced dissatisfaction with Prime Minister Alan Chasney. Among them were former stalwarts of the United Workers' Party who left due to their discontent with Chasney. Former first vice chair of the UWP, Mary Polius, made it clear that she was no longer affiliated with the party.
I need to make a correction here. I am not a member of the United Workers' Party. My membership with the United Workers' Party is history. I am not a member of the United Workers' Party. I do not support the United Workers' Party, and I have nothing to do with the United Workers' Party. And by the same token, they have nothing to do with me.
Former Health Minister Dr. Keith Mondesi echoed calls for the Chasney-led regime to go.
I want to tell the United Workers' Party that I'm a proud St. Lucian, and I cherish my liberty to speak and to move about in St. Lucia as I please. And I'm going to tell him that St. Lucians are docile, very gentle people, but when you put us in a corner, you will get kicked. And I will not stop. There will be no peace, no tranquility in this land unless we get our freedom to move, freedom to speak, and our people are liberated. And when we are liberated, by putting out the United Workers' Party, we will all get together and sing the Negro spiritual, free at last, Chasney must go.
Another disgruntled ex-supporter of the UWP, Antonia Alcindor, claims the party no longer stands for equality, progress, and rule of law.
The UWP I knew protected the greater good of every St. Lucian. The UWP I knew did not make a mockery of the Constitution or impose laws or to oppress and silence the people who elected them to serve. Moi disot, ça passe là-bas. I knew a party that held dear to the principles of what best described by people, a party that taught us that service and people and their welfare was that of paramount importance. And I tell you, this UWP, ça passe là-bas.
Opposition leader Philip J. Pierre vowed to put the people first if selected as the next Prime Minister. He promised a government of inclusion and not division.
And in St. Lucia, we need a new politics. And that new politics must involve dialogue and consultation. And that is why a St. Lucia Labour Party government would never behave like the government of the United Workers' Party.
The St. Lucia Labour Party government would consult with people when they ask for consultation.
The thousands of St. Lucians who braved the rain and blazing sun at the rally appealed to Prime Minister Alan Chasney to ring the election bell. Gina Filippi, HTS News Force.
In sports, we're in the creases with cricket. Come next week, West Indies selectors will choose the regional squads for the upcoming New Zealand tour. This confirmation comes from the convener of selectors, Roger Harper. The Windies is scheduled to play the 3 2020 internationals and 2 tests from November 27 to December 15. According to Harper, an expanded squad of reserves would be included in keeping with the new protocols introduced because of the novel coronavirus pandemic. The tour is the second one for West Indies following their notable 3-test series in England last July, the first to be played in the biosecure environment due to COVID-19. No spectators were allowed at matches and players were placed in an isolated bubble away from the general public for the duration of the tour. New Zealand has been one of the most successful nations in managing the pandemic, with 1,858 confirmed infections, only 43 active cases, and 25 deaths. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thanks as always for making it PBCJ. We are the People's Station.